We're back here in Trojan land. That's right, the USC Trojans. That's their the mascot is a Roman Trojan soldier. That's right. And we're here in University Village, which is across the street from the entrance to the campus. As you can see, we're set up, and we're getting a lot of thumbs up. So we've had a day of discussion here, talking about a lot of issues of the day, and then referring to the fact that this is the 2070th anniversary since the assassination of Julius Caesar, which is called the Ides of March, and basically talking about understanding history, how we got to where we are now. Why it was a mistake for Julius Caesar to be assassinated. Transitioning to a better system would be a much better outcome for all of us than just allowing the empire to collapse. So we're kind of in a similar situation now as the Roman Empire was previous to the Ides of March. To commemorate this event and to focus mostly on solutions. How do we transition?
Within this nightmare of historical reaction called the Roman Empire, the city-building tendency within humanity asserted itself. Gaius Julius Caesar, a military man born among the aristocracy, emerged in the late Roman Republic to present a progressive vision. Michael Parenti's award-winning work of political science and historiography, The Assassination of Julius Caesar, A People's History of Ancient Rome, tells of a maligned populist and reformer who championed everyday Romans against the wealthy landowners. Parenti writes, he used state power to effect some limited benefits to small farmers, debtors, and the urban proletariat at the expense of the wealthy few. No matter how limited these reforms proved to be, the oligarchs never forgave him, and so Caesar met the same fate as the other Roman reformers before him. Parenti's book recounting the life and death of Julius Caesar was the 2004 Online Review of Books Nonfiction Book of the Year. The same year, Parenti published his widely praised text. The Caucus for New Political Science gave him the Career Achievement Award. Parenti's scholarship was groundbreaking because it showed Julius Caesar in a completely different light, challenging the narrative put forward by William Shakespeare and other Roman historians who favored the perspective of the wealthy elite. Parenti draws from the words of those who demonized Caesar to show that their contempt was rooted in their own class interests. Parenti quotes such sources such as the Greek biographer and essayist Plutarch. Plutocracy on that. Well, so Plutarch really didn't like him and accused Caesar of stirring up and attaching himself to numerous diseased and corrupted elements of polity. Parenti also quotes Appian, another Roman historian, who describes Caesar as, quote, having introduced, quote, laws to better the conditions of the poor. And then there's a figure right here, and in that figure it says Julius Caesar sought to shift the Roman Empire towards a more sustainable and progressive role in the world and champion the proletariat, was stabbed to death by wealthy senators in 44 BCE. So that's where Ishmael's sign comes in, that it says 2070. Since it's 2026, then we just add 44 to it, and then it comes out cleanly to 2070. So it's nice clean arithmetic there. The specifics of Caesar's reforms show him as a thoroughly progressive-minded leader. Caesar sent the unemployed proletarians of Rome to build city-states throughout the empire in hopes of making them thriving centers of trade. Caesar constructed public libraries, giving the citizenry access to written records and information. Caesar cracked down on moneylenders, lifted the restrictions and penalties on debtors, imposed luxury taxes on the decadent rich. Caesar granted Roman citizenship to all doctors and teachers, hoping to reward and cultivate the kind of people who could make Rome a center of science, civilization, and culture. Caesar was appointed by the Senate for a 10-year term as the imperator, or Roman head of state. On 3 occasions, Caesar was offered a crown, but each time he declined to become a monarch. Despite being a strong man, Caesar remained an advocate of democracy and was loved by the people. His power came from the thousands of Roman proletarians, free citizens who had no property, who saw him as their champion against the wealthy landowners and senators. This mobilization of the people as a populari or populist made Caesar far more powerful than any king or emperor could be. Caesar's vision for reconstructing Roman society involved mobilizing millions of people, not as plundering raiders extracting tribute, but as city builders, continuing the great project of making music for which Socrates had been executed by a similarly cruel, short-sighted elite. Parenti explains, quote, "The Senate aristocrats killed Caesar because they perceived him to be a popular leader who threatened their privileged interests. The greatest sin of Julius Caesar, in the eyes of the Roman elite, was the talk of land redistribution, ensuring that a tiny oligarchy would not maintain a monopoly over the main sources of wealth for Roman society, the mines and plantations." Parenti quotes Plutarch in describing how Caesar's land reform law, quote, provided that almost the whole of Campania be divided among the poor and needy. I guess Plutarch didn't like that. And there's one more page. Caesar talked of granting citizenship to the people throughout the rest of the empire. Parenti quotes Roman historian Cicero, who bemoaned that Caesar planned to confer, quote, citizenship not merely on individuals, but on entire nations and provinces, end quote. If people in Central Europe, Persia, North Africa, and other conquered lands could join with the Roman people in setting the policies and enjoying the fruits of the empire, the civilization might have been more sustainable. Having championed the common people, Julius Caesar was stabbed to death in the hall of the Roman Senate. Parenti explains the assassination, quote, "Caesar was branded a traitor to his class by members of that class. He committed the unforgivable sin of trying to redistribute, albeit in modest portions, some of the wealth that the very rich tirelessly siphoned from state coffers and from the labor of the many. It was unforgivable that he should tamper with the system of upward expropriation that they embraced as their birthright." Sounds a lot like capitalism.
It does.
Caesar seems to have not comprehended that the conflict between the haves and have-nots, the haves are really have-it-alls. The Roman aristocrats lambasted the palest reforms and the worst kind of thievery. The beginning of a calamitous revolutionary leveling necessitated extreme countermeasures. They presented their violent retaliation not as an ugly class expediency, but as an honorable act of behalf of Republican liberty. And that's the end of the quote from Michael Parenti, who recently passed away, tragically. Well, in his 90s, I think.
92, he had a good life.
So he lived a very long and great career. The assassination of Julius Caesar, though it was met with riots and rebellions among the people, ultimately doomed Roman civilization. Some of the very senators who stabbed Caesar wept by his funeral pyre. They realized that their empire needed a progressive thinker, a strong leader, an advocate of kindness, compassion, and solidarity to lead it towards something better. Yet, in love with their own profits, the greedy and rich had stabbed to death the very person who could save the empire from its own self-destructive, vandal tendencies. And that's the end of the passage. But anyway, I just thought that was useful, considering that this is the Ides of March today.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
Your ancestors say what they did. They had this now semi-autonomous state, but they still like to give the money to the central government and to other things. But when after
Like the Ides of March.